Think about what disables you. Is it a disability or an impairment or, I mean, yeah, I'm just thinking about it. Because it's such a biggie. I believe that everyone's got some form of disability, and some disabilities are maybe more obvious, are seen more. But I remember I was at a conference one day and I'd spoken, and I'd got a great reception. I got a standing ovation. What better could I want? And I actually stuck around after this conference, and a group of men came up to me the next morning. I'd stayed the night, and they said, "Cam, we've been thinking about what is it that makes people with disabilities such as yourself and other great role models, what makes them succeed?" And he said, "We've come up with an answer." And I thought, wow, what is this going to be? You know, I haven't really thought of it, but tell me what your answer is. And he said, "We've realised that because you have a physical disability, you don't have as much opportunity as the rest of us, and therefore you've got to embrace what you've got." And now at the time I kind of nodded and I smiled and I said, "Oh, yeah, well," but when I think about that more, you know, what was that? Was that him really being true and honest, or is it him looking at his own life and going, something's disabled me from achieving who I want to be? Because I'm a strong believer, and I wake up every day and I think, what am I going to do? You know, it's not because I don't know what to do. It's just, do I work on my business first? Do I ring up my girlfriend first? Do I go and clean my car first? Do I book a holiday? Do I start looking where my next investment is going to be? You know, these are the kind of things that I do. My challenge is not my disability. I was born with my disability, and so if I'm going to let it be my biggest impairment in life, I'm not really living, am I? So my biggest challenge is when I was at school, how am I going to pass my exam? How am I going to make my business a success? How am I going to ensure that I'm living every single day to their max? And I wouldn't say that those challenges are much different than anyone else in life who chooses to be the very best that they can be, who chooses to go on and see the world as a place of opportunity. And seeing the place of opportunity, it's not about having an idealistic outlook on life, because this life, here we are, is life as we know it. And so why can't it be ideal? Why wouldn't it? And the only thing that's going to make it ideal is you. There's going to be people who come into our life who influence who we are and what we do, and maybe support us through tough times, or maybe hurt us in a way, whatever way. But those people are going to come and they're going to go. And what they leave with you, you then have a decision how that influences who you're going to be. If you're going to let that disable you and limit opportunity, that's your choice. If you're going to let that experience lead on to you becoming a Paralympic gold medalist, a world champion, a successful on the cover of a Forbes magazine, whatever it may be, you choose that as well. And that's exciting. When I look at life and I look at leadership and I look at some of the most powerful leaders in sport, business, politics, and they've often got a very incredible story. It's a story of overcoming some form of adversity and quite often being told that you can't do something. But they've gone on and achieved it anyway. And I also meet parents who again, kind of, they lower the bar in terms of what the young person can achieve. They look at them as, this isn't normal, this isn't what I expected, and it's the biggest disability in the world. And therefore, their attitude, they're trying to help their kid, but in a massive way, they're disabling the kid even further by talking about things like normality. What is normal? When I was 14, I received a letter from a guy who was a television presenter. He was actually my biggest role model. And he wrote me a letter, and inside that letter he said, celebrate what makes you different. And he followed that up by saying, the people who count in this world look for difference in people. You know, how boring would it be if we were all the same? If we were all the same, we wouldn't have the amazing stuff we have around us today. If we were all the same, we wouldn't have put a man on the moon. We wouldn't have Olympic champions. We wouldn't have leaders. We need this diversity in our culture in order to move forward. We need to celebrate that, and we need to be excited by challenge, and excitement can be confused with difficulty, with butterflies. I was speaking to a performer yesterday, and he said every time I go out on stage, I'm incredibly nervous. I'm shaking. I'm needing to go to the toilet every 10 minutes before I perform. But what he realised is that nervousness is actually an excitement, or is a precursor to the excitement of the feeling he gets from entertaining a room full of people. So there's another thing, is our nerves are the things that make us a little bit scared. Is it because we really are scared, or is it because we're so excited that if everything comes together, that's going to be the best drug in the world? That's gonna make you just feel 10 foot tall and bulletproof. And that's what it does. I know when I speak in front of an audience of people, and some of my biggest audiences have been 2,500 people. And as a kid with a speech impediment who was once told that one of the things Cam will challenge with is communication, you know, I'm incredibly nervous before these talks, but I go into it and I break the ice as soon as I can, and from that moment on, I'm flowing, and I get to see that. I see a very interesting life. I see a life where I walk down the street and no one knows who I am, and I know they're looking at me a little bit strange, or they're thinking things, and sometimes they even say stuff. But then I get in front of an audience of 2,500 people, and I've been given 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, maybe 45 minutes to share who I am, to share a story, not a sympathetic story, but a story that is encouraging them to be the best that they can be. And by the end of that 45 minutes, I have 2,500 new friends. There's 2,500 people in that room who the week before would have walked past me in the street, maybe pointed at me, maybe laughed at me, maybe spoken to a friend, maybe asked me out on a date. You just don't know. But what happens is you give someone an opportunity to share, and you learn about them. So, but why does that need to happen in a room where you are the speaker? That's my biggest question to life, is we can solve so many of the issues in this world and make it so much better than it is by being open, by sharing stories, by doing things like this, that take down that nervous barrier and make it into a feeling of excitement